I have to tell you, I was so much more than just pleased this week. Everybody was willing to open themselves up. Everybody was willing to delve into these pieces of literature and react as they went along. Each of your essays indicated that you gave that a real try. Now, some of you had emailed me saying you thought that was going to be a pretty hard thing because many of us are used to the idea of reading something completely before we allow ourselves to react to it. And so my purpose in this assignment was for those of you who were used to waiting till something is over before you allow yourself to react, um, to have you have a different perspective on it, to have you have to react as you go along. So, in a sense, to open yourself up to, as I've said all through the semester, and as all of you did in this week's assignment, become one with what you are reading. All of you did that kind of thing, and your reactions were so interesting. Um, I enjoyed them. You wrote so many good comments about each other's essays too, um, because I think comments may have been a little bit more personally involving this week because each of you allowed yourselves to become one with the story. So, you know, you think about, you know, the story with Nikki and you know her relationship with Jeff. It's like, what's the matter with this lady? You know, sweeping up the hair that she cuts off. But yeah, she's obsessed. You know, and I guess she wants to hang on to something from their relationship. Okay, so as I think pathetic as that seems, that's what she did, and you all reacted to it. And then in the other one, you know, in Shout, so many of you actually got pretty personal. You know, some of you had experienced similar kinds of things in one way or another, um, and so you were willing to share that. Okay, as painful as it was, and certainly I wasn't trying to reopen any wounds for anybody. That wasn't the idea. The idea was, as I've said over and over, you know, for you to allow yourself to become involved. So I hope that that was an enjoyable experience for all of you, so that as you move forward, you will be more and more willing to do that kind of thing, to consider stories as you go along. You know, one of the things that my wife and I do as we watch different mystery shows or detective shows on television or whatever is to put forth our ideas of what we think is going to happen. Now, ironically, I mean, all of you, I'm sure, have seen the Hallmark Christmas movies, especially. And the first time my wife and I watched one 2 or 3 years ago, within 5 minutes, we said to each other, this is going to end like this. And of course it did. And then after we watched more and more of them, because they're nice stories, you know. So after we watched more and more of them, we realized that pretty much in all of the Hallmark stories, if you allow yourself to start thinking about what's going on, you know what's going to happen in one way or another. And it's I mean, they may not always end up getting married, but you know what's going to happen. That's pretty clear. Well, okay, so that's because we allow ourselves to become part of what we're seeing on the screen, you know, and that's what I want you to do, not only in your reading, but in your viewing as well. Okay, so in fact, later on in the semester, we're going to have a movie where you will be asked to do just that, you know, to kind of think as you go. So that's cool. Anyway, okay, so we're moving in a little bit different direction this week. And I'll tell you, I am disappointed that I can't create the setting that I generally create when I talk about the work we're going to talk about this week. We're going to be talking about the short story Young Goodman Brown. Okay, and as you'll see, Goodman Brown it is traveling to a witch's Sabbath. And of course, at this witch's Sabbath, there is a great fire. So I usually try to help create a setting, create a mood through setting, because I do this story in front of my fireplace usually. I mean, I do this video usually in front of my fireplace, so that the idea of flame, becomes a part of it all for you right from the beginning. But I'm having my fireplace remodeled, and so it's a bit of a mess up there right now. So I can't do that for you. So I'm sorry. But in this story, it's a story that you have to read pretty intently. It's another Nathaniel Hawthorne story. We read The Birthmark early in the semester, and you remember that that was a pretty intense story. Well, if anything, this story is even more intense than that one was. Okay, this might be my favorite thing that we do in the entire semester. We've done a lot of stuff that I really like, but Young Goodman Brown might really be my favorite. Okay. The story is set in Salem in 1692, and in the lesson this week, I give you a pretty fair background on it all. And I'll say this in the lesson, but I'll say it in the video too. This is not Old English, okay? English is a living language. It continues to change. So you'll see terms like thee and thou. That's not Old English. Old English was 500 years or more before the time of Shakespeare, who was 500 years ago now, okay? So Old English went to bed more than 1,000 years ago. So this is just a fact that our language has changed. Now let me give you a quick example of how our language has changed over the years. When I went to school, the word text meant either the writing in a book or a book itself. We had text books, or you read the text, you read the things that were printed in the book, okay? Now the word text has gone from being a noun to being a verb. When somebody says to you text, I'm sure you right away think of your thumbs, okay? And the texting that you do with your thumbs. So that shows you quickly in a relatively short period of time how our language has evolved, and it continues to evolve. Okay, well, Hawthorne wrote this story almost 200 years ago, but he referred to times from 330 years ago. Okay, so you can imagine that language has changed. I mean, you think of the words that were cool when you were 13, and they're different now, okay, because language changes. So don't let those things bother you, okay? Just read thee and thou as you, and prithee, it's like, please believe me, that kind of thing, okay? So don't let those kind of things throw you off. Now, this story is set in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692, okay? I think everybody knows that, although I thought everybody would know what the Ides of March is, and not everybody does. The reason why the Ides of March, well, as somebody pointed out, it's the 75th day in the Roman calendar. But beyond that, the Ides of March is the day that Julius Caesar was assassinated. Okay, and I wanted to see how many of you knew that. Not a whole lot. I think there were only 4 out of the class that knew that. But it's kind of cool that some did. Anyway, okay. So if anybody ever says to you, "Beware the Ides of March," that was said to Caesar in the play early on, and then he was assassinated on the Ides of March. Okay, so young Goodman Brown. We have the story of a young Puritan man, supposedly very innocent. Okay, and yet as the story goes on, we have reason to wonder about his innocence. Okay, and when we get to the end of the story, we have special reason to wonder about that. It's like, wow, what happened with this guy? Okay, Goodman Brown's his wife's name is Faith, and you'll see that Faith is the center of Goodman Brown's faith. Okay, I mean, she's the one that really is the anchor for him. There's a lot that goes on in the story. Goodman Brown meets somebody in the woods. And when Goodman Brown, he's supposed to meet him at 6 o'clock. When Goodman Brown shows up, this character says to him, "You're late, Goodman Brown. When I flew past Old North full 15 minutes ago, the clock was already striking 6. Now, Salem is probably 25 or 30 miles outside of Boston. Okay, so the only way somebody could get from downtown Boston to Salem in that short period of time is if they were a spirit. And we'll see very quickly this is an evil spirit. Okay, so Goodman Brown meets an evil spirit. Now it's in the forest, it's getting dark. So, those things automatically create images for you. Goodman Brown is going on an evil journey. He knows it. Okay. And yet he's trying to play the innocent role. So is he really innocent? Then he sees characters that are really significant in his life, and they shock him again and again and again. I encourage you to allow yourself to become one with this story, because again, if you allow yourself to take this journey with Goodman Brown, then maybe you'll allow yourself to be shocked the way Goodman Brown is shocked, because there are people who are significant to him, like his catechism teacher and like his pastor, who seem to be making the same journey he is to a witch's Sabbath. Just imagine what that would do to you. Okay, so put all of those things into consideration. Now, quick question for you, video question that you can email the answer to me for, and it's an easy question really once you read the story. When we get to the real high point of the story, when Goodman Brown is asked to make his commitment to the devil, there is somebody standing there with him. Who is that somebody standing there with him? I love this story. It's a great story. I hope you love it the way I do. It's intense. So allow yourself to go on the journey with Goodman. Don't just read about Goodman's journey. Go on the journey with him. You submersed yourself in the previous two stories. Do it again here, okay? You know where to get me. Questions, contact me. Again, if you want to talk to each other, I sent you an email a couple of weeks ago that gave you a method that you could contact each other in the class, so that if you want to discuss things a little bit, that's okay. But again, feel free to contact me. Have a great week. We will see you soon.